What is Gucci, family?
Jake Paul's got a pretty crazy life. So get wild, subscribe to our channel, and let's kick back and look at 10 times that Jake Paul, the guy the internet loves to hate, was actually trolled himself. His new girlfriend is pregnant.
Ha! Got him!
After he kicked his now ex-girlfriend Alyssa Violet out of the house, Jake Paul quickly hooked up with another girl who he seems to be treating a lot nicer than his ex, Erica Costell. Perhaps it's because they have a lot in common, as she refers to her fans as Costellers.
Good morning, Costellers.
Like Jake Paul and his Jake Paulers.
How are you doing, Jake Paulers?
They're quite the pair, or should I say a pair-er? She did, however, play a pretty decent prank on Paul. Considering many people think that Paul is sort of a bad person off camera, this could have ended very poorly. Erica essentially drew 2 lines on a pregnancy test with a pink pen and hid a camera in Jake's room, even though the camera's moving the whole time, so it means someone must have been holding it. Despite that, Jake's reaction seems genuine, as he really doesn't say anything for a good minute outside of a few hmms. He actually handles it pretty well as he hugs his girlfriend and lies down to take it all in. She does point out that her friend is the one filming, while she admits she's pranked Paul for the first time, which is probably why it worked so well. Like Paul said at the end, that could have made me look so bad.
That could have made me look so bad.
And considering he didn't, perhaps people are wrong about Paul after all. His channel got suspended. Now, there's one thing that you have to understand if you're moving into the Team 10 house, or really 10 things. First and foremost, Jake Paul is in charge, and it's his way or the highway. You can pick up on that in his vlogs, when he complains about how clean some of the Team 10ers' rooms are, for example. Apparently, there are also rules about drinking alcohol in the house. It's not allowed. And if people violate certain rules, apparently they have to pay Jake a decent chunk of change. The other given that comes to mind when you live in the Team 10 house is that you can't trust basically anyone, as there are pranks going on constantly in order to drum up traffic. The main goal of each Team 10er is to provide content as often as possible. So by including one another in their videos, and probably even more importantly, their thumbnail, via a prank war, they get those delicious clicks that Paul gets 20 to 25% of. One of the better pranks during one of the more recent prank wars happened when the Martinez twins brought in someone to act as one of the head YouTube managers and told Paul that his channel was suspended for 60 days for violating site policy. Now, because of their thick accents and Spanish intentional lisp/speech impediment, they couldn't actually call Jake. So they instead had a friend call and read from a script while they secretly filmed the conversation from Paul's perspective as well. Now, the call seems legit, as does Paul's reaction. It's hard to make out exactly what they were suspending Paul over, but it sounded like it had to do with one of his pranks where he pretends to sell YouTube's headquarters. In that video, Paul enters the lobby of the business after putting a for sale sign up, and because of that, Paul completely buys that he is speaking with someone at YouTube, and that's what makes this so fun to watch. Cremating Yeezys. I'm not sure what the definition of trolling or even pranking someone is in Spain, but apparently the Martinez twins seem to think that destroying someone's hyper-expensive personal property falls under the umbrella of one of the two. In this video, a precursor to the epic fire that ended up getting Paul on the local news and his neighbors on the phone with their lawyers, the twins decide to burn Jake's Yeezys, which are hyper hard to get and very expensive shoes made by the only person who might have a larger ego than Jake Paul, Kanye West. Some may say that this video, and the shoes in it, are fake, but the look on Paul's face and the fact that he says essentially nothing after he walks out to see his brand new shoes on fire says otherwise. Meanwhile, his friends all celebrate how savage the Martinez twins are because they decided to burn shoes that cost thousands of dollars. Considering the fact the video has over 3 million views and YouTube reportedly pays about $2,000 per million views, the Martinez twins can at least afford to buy Paul a couple pairs of those hideous shoes. Or since Jake Paul reportedly gets 20% of the revenue from each of the Team 10 members' videos, maybe he can buy his own pair. Oh, and if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please go ahead and do it now while we get back to Jake Paul.
Just do it!
Team 10 evicted? There were some trolling attempts that didn't have a lot of thought behind them, but ended up turning into something more thanks to the local media in Los Angeles, essentially creating a feeding frenzy around Jake Paul and his neighbors' hatred of him and their inability of local journalists to check their sources. The Juke Squad fellas essentially copy one of Paul's most well-known pranks, in which Jake Paul puts a for sale sign in famous people's yards, and that's it. The Juke Squad prank involves putting an eviction letter on Paul's door, which makes a lot more sense considering the fact that A, Paul is renting the Team 10 house, and B, he was violating pretty much everything Elise states on a daily basis, and C, the media is covering what a terrible neighbor he is in a decently high-priced neighborhood. So, by itself, this would have been funny because it would have scared Paul and company for a minute or two until they texted their landlord, but it became next level when the local media in Los Angeles filmed one of the Juke Squad fellas putting the order up and put it on the news as news. Jake Paul versus Logan Paul. If you weren't already aware, Jake Paul actually has an older brother that is like the rich man's version of Jake. Regardless of where you stand on the Jake Paulers versus the Low Gang, one thing is for sure. When the brothers combine their efforts, even if it's against one another, they get an amazing amount of views. The crown jewel in their prank war was when Logan had actors pretend to arrest his brother while posing as the Secret Service. One reason it worked so well is that Jake Paul has had multiple conversations with the Secret Service regarding a couple pranks he pulled that involved the White House and the president. First, he attempted to stay overnight in a White House bathroom while Obama was still in office, and then he put a for sale sign up at one of Donald Trump's homes in California. The main actor did an amazing job and kept repeating that Paul had committed a federal offense by leaving the tour group and staying in the bathroom. You can tell by his face that he's terrified. So much so that he didn't even laugh when the actor asked if he was pooping the whole time, because that'd be impressive.
Were you actually pooping that whole time? Because if so, that's pretty impressive.
When they told him that his YouTube channel was going to be deleted for Homeland Security purposes and attempted to detain him, he started to panic. The ending is amazing, and we'll let you just enjoy it for yourself. Jake Paul versus Jake Paul?
What?
There's one major thing that people get wrong about Jake Paul, and that's the idea that he's stupid. He's actually pretty smart, or at least very business savvy. He's able to take advantage of upcoming trends in his videos quickly enough that people assume he came up with the idea himself. Part of that, obviously, is the seemingly non-stop diss tracks that have been coming out between different YouTube channels and vloggers. Because Paul is aware that he's being exposed left and right in these videos, it looks like he's attempting to stop the bleeding by releasing a new diss track on himself. The track titled Jake Paul, he used the asterisk because he's still gotta get revenue. It's also quite amazing it wasn't called Flip Jake Paul, is essentially Paul's attempt to pull an Eminem from the end of 8 Mile. In it, Paul raps about himself and attempts to take away anything that people can say about him by saying it himself. The problem is that it's sort of a too little, too late situation. The song itself really doesn't touch on what people dislike about Paul. He calls himself tubby, despite the fact that he's in relatively good shape and works out every day. He then responds to himself and tries to explain that he understands why people dislike him. That having been said, a lot of the Jake Paul hate comes from the fact that he's simply gotten extremely internet famous extremely fast. He's no different than a lot of people his age, and because he's become famous for doing stupid stuff online, he is doing stupid stuff online. Outside of perhaps cheating on his girlfriend, he's done nothing terrible. Sure, his neighbors don't like him, but how many of us had neighbors that hated you in college? So, if anything, this song succeeds in that it makes you realize that he's just sort of a douchebag because he's become super successful for being a douchebag. At least he's admitted that at this point. Hopefully, he'll actually work on those small issues as opposed to fixing his 2-pack. Swatting. If you're not familiar with the term swatting, it probably means that you're a decent human being, or over the age of 35. Swatting is a prank that became popular a few years ago when kids, and sadly some adults, started sending SWAT teams to one another's house by calling 911 and saying some sort of hostage situation was going on. It's a horrible thing to do and is really not funny in the slightest, even if you really dislike a person. As the video of Paul's house being swatted shows, it takes a lot of resources and it could very easily get someone killed because SWAT teams go into houses pretty aggressively. Now, Paul probably should have seen this coming as he did post the address of the Team 10 house publicly online. Because his address is online and because the internet can be a cesspool of sadness, it was really only a matter of time, which makes the rumors that he has been swatted yet again seem true. You can watch pretty low-quality news footage about the first swatting situation just to see the amount of police, fire trucks, and personnel show up that takes them away from doing their real jobs. It's Chessa Brooks. Now, Jake Paul essentially broke the internet when he released It's Everyday Bro on The World. Somehow his song landed in the top spot of the Billboard Hot 100 for only one day, but that's one day that will live in infamy. The song was so bad that it was almost a parody of itself. However, you knew that basically every other YouTuber was going to comment on the video, and they did, every single one of them. So it wasn't hard to find parodies and reaction videos of the song, but it was hard to find good reactions or parodies. That was until Bart Barker released his parody of the song. It's extremely well done and pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of the original video. They even found a couple of Spanish twins and the same outfits, sort of, but they apparently couldn't find a single woman to be in the video, outside of his mom at the end, so their Chessa Brooks is extra hilarious. This video was so good, it almost got the top spot on this list. His ex. Now, at one point in time, Jake Paul and Alyssa Violet were an item online. There's one thing that Jake Paul is very good at, and it's understanding how his audience interprets his videos and sees him. He's essentially the male Taylor Swift. One thing that is super popular on YouTube is young couples that make videos together and combine their names. In this case, Jake and Alyssa were known as Jalissa, and on camera they had a picture-perfect relationship. Off camera, though, Jake was playing a lot of mind games and essentially slamming every one of his fans over the age of 18. After having enough, Alyssa confronted Jake and awoke the next morning to find that she was being booted from the house after she slept in the same bed as Jake. So, she made a video explaining how Jake would tell her he loved her one night and then asked her to leave the house for a while so he could have a girl over the next. This was the first thing that put a chink in the armor that was Jake Paul's public image. Her video is still one of the defining vids of 2017 on YouTube, and it was probably the most impactful of any video on this list in terms of how it affected Paul's image. It's Every Night, Sis. Now, it's pretty well known that the brothers Paul like to make rap music. Some of what the elder brother Logan does is palatable, but it's not something anyone would have heard had he not had this gigantic platform and following beforehand. If there's anyone on YouTube that actually has had a chance to do that, though, it's RiceGum. RiceGum essentially is a vlogger who creates diss tracks for other vloggers. It's been pretty well known for a while now that he doesn't write his own stuff, as another YouTuber named The Diss Rapper has been linked to Gum as a ghostwriter, but he has far less viewers than RiceGum does. Now, if anything, while this video did essentially end up exposing RiceGum as someone who is just looking for clicks and will cross any line to get it, and he pretty much admitted as much in another video that he's doing exactly that, saying essentially, "We're cool, I'm sorry, I just like clicks so much more." The song is actually really good and the lyrics are actually really impressive, as is the beat, which is typically the strength of these jams. Even Alyssa Violet tears up the mic, as much as a YouTuber can. This is the age we live in, and if this is what is cool these days, then this has to be the best example of someone trolling in a diss track or in general. There's so much shade and so many references that it's the YouTube drama's version of Tupac's Hit 'Em Up. For more about Jake Paul and other cool stuff, check out our other videos.